Mrs. Stefanko, you were convicted of count 1 and count 2, which were originally count 15 and count 17, aggravated murder and murder. The state
It
of
was June
Ohio
20th,
and attorneys
2012,
Laybourne,
a
Killian,
humid
Krainek
Wednesday
have
night
agreed.
in New Franklin, Ohio. Just after 10 p.m., 25-year-old Ashley Biggs was finishing another long shift delivering pizzas for Domino's. She was a single mother, an Army veteran, and someone who, by all accounts, worked hard to build a better life for her 7-year-old daughter. That night she received a delivery call, one that seemed completely routine. The address was an empty business lot off West Tickyfoot Lake Road. Nothing unusual. Ashley had taken dozens of orders like it before. She grabbed the pizza box, stepped into her silver Pontiac and headed out, unaware that the call had been carefully planned, not by a stranger but by people who knew her well. The order had been placed by Erica Stefanko, using a fake name and a prepaid phone. Sitting beside her was her husband at the time, Chad Cobb, Ashley's ex-boyfriend and the father of her daughter. They were inside the same car with 4 children, including the very child Ashley had come to pick up earlier that evening. What Ashley didn't know was that this delivery wasn't about pizza, it was about revenge. According to prosecutors, the plan was simple but chilling. Erica made the call, luring Ashley to a dark, secluded parking lot. Chad waited nearby. When Ashley arrived, he ambushed her, attacking her from behind. The scene was violent, fast, and deliberate. Investigators later determined she was beaten, restrained with zip ties, and strangled. When the assault was over, Chad loaded Ashley's body into her own car and drove to a remote field in Chippewa Township, where he abandoned the vehicle. Her remains were discovered the next morning by local police. Back in New Franklin, Erica drove home with the children. She acted as though nothing had happened. She cleaned up, went to bed, and began what prosecutors described as years of silence, never reporting the crime, never telling anyone, and never showing remorse. For years the murder went unsolved. Detectives had clues but no clear direction. Chad Cobb, the man who carried out the attack, was arrested soon after and charged with aggravated murder. Facing overwhelming evidence, he pleaded guilty and was sentenced to life in prison without parole. At first, Erica was treated as a witness, not a suspect. She told police she had no idea what Chad had done that night. But as the investigation continued, small inconsistencies began to surface. Phone records didn't match her story. The order for the pizza traced back to a number connected to her. And Chad's later testimony would expose her role completely. Years later, while serving his life sentence, Chad Cobb finally spoke. He told investigators that Erica wasn't just aware of the plan, she was part of it. He claimed she helped arrange the fake order, guided him to the location, and even stayed on the phone as Ashley arrived. Detectives cross-referenced his statement with phone logs, delivery records, and witness testimony. It all lined up. The case that once seemed solved was suddenly reopened, and this time, it pointed straight to Erica Stefanko. When authorities finally arrested her, it had been 8 years since Ashley Biggs' murder. 8 years of silence. 8 years of a secret hidden behind a calm suburban life. Erica had remarried, moved on, and appeared to live quietly, until the evidence caught up with her. In 2020, prosecutors charged her with aggravated murder, kidnapping, and complicity to commit murder. During her trial, the courtroom heard hours of testimony, from investigators, family members, and Chad Cobb himself, who testified against her. The jury listened to how Erica used a prepaid phone, how she placed the order pretending to be a customer, and how the delivery led Ashley to her death. It was a story of control, jealousy, and retaliation, over a child who became caught between 2 adults consumed by anger. Throughout the proceedings, Erica denied any involvement. Her defense argued that Chad acted alone and that his testimony was unreliable, a desperate attempt to shift blame after years behind bars. But prosecutors countered that too much of the evidence connected her to the planning. The phone call, the timing, the coordination, all pointed to one conclusion: she wasn't an innocent bystander. As the jury deliberated, Ashley's daughter, now a teenager, sat in the courtroom, listening as her mother's final moments were described in detail. After several days of testimony, the verdict was announced. Guilty on all major counts. The sentencing that followed, the moment we opened with, marked the final chapter of a crime that had haunted an entire community. But even then, questions lingered. How could a mother, sitting in a car with 4 children, including her victim's daughter, help orchestrate such a calculated act? What drives someone to cross that line, from resentment to revenge? Those are questions the court could never fully answer. But the record remains. On a quiet June night in Ohio, one phone call, made in jealousy and anger, ended the life of a woman who had served her country, loved her child, and just wanted to deliver one last pizza before heading home. When detectives first arrived at the dark parking lot on June 21, 2012, they had no idea the case would stretch on for years. Ashley Biggs's car was missing. Her phone was silent. Her coworkers at Domino's said she'd gone out on a late delivery and never returned. By dawn, search teams were combing rural roads outside New Franklin, Ohio. It didn't take long before officers discovered her silver Pontiac abandoned along a field in Chippewa Township. Inside they found her body. She had been restrained and strangled. From that moment, the investigation turned from a missing person report into a homicide. Detectives retraced Ashley's final moments. They pulled phone records, checked delivery logs, and began contacting everyone close to her. The delivery order that sent her to the ambush had been placed from a prepaid cell phone, registered under a false name. The call had come from an area near where Erica Stefanko and Chad Cobb lived. At first, police interviewed both of them. Chad, who shared custody of Ashley's daughter, appeared calm but evasive. Erica told investigators she'd been home all evening. Nothing seemed to place her at the scene, not yet. Still, detectives sensed something was missing. The order time, the call location, and the direction Ashley took didn't line up with the alibis. Within days, forensic specialists were collecting evidence from Ashley's vehicle and the scene. Fibers, tire impressions, phone data, every piece mattered. Then came the first major break. A GPS ping from Chad Cobb's phone placed him near the remote field where Ashley's body was found. The second break came from surveillance footage. Faint images of a vehicle matching Chad's SUV moving along a road near the delivery site around the same time Ashley disappeared. When investigators confronted him with the data, his story began to unravel. Faced with mounting evidence, Chad Cobb eventually confessed. He admitted that he had lured Ashley out, attacked her, and ended her life. But what shocked detectives most wasn't the confession itself. It was his insistence that he hadn't acted alone. According to Chad, Erica Stefanko, his wife at the time, was the one who made the delivery call. He claimed they had argued for weeks about custody issues and about Ashley's involvement in their lives. Chad said Erica wanted to end the problem once and for all. She had used a prepaid phone to place the fake pizza order, knowing Ashley would come. Chad described how Erica sat in the car with the children while he carried out the attack. It was a horrifying account, one that turned an already tragic crime into something even harder to comprehend. Detectives verified what they could. Phone records confirmed a call was made from a prepaid device purchased days before the murder. The location data matched Chad's timeline. And one of the children in the car, just a child at the time, later told investigators she remembered hearing parts of a heated argument that night. It was enough to convince prosecutors that Chad's story had weight. Still, when he entered his guilty plea in 2013, he refused to testify against Erica. He accepted a life without parole sentence, and the case against her quietly faded from public view. For nearly 8 years, Erica lived freely. She remarried, changed her last name, and tried to move on. But detectives never closed the file completely. In 2019, investigators revisited the case. Advances in digital forensics allowed them to reanalyze old phone data and revisit statements from witnesses. The details pointed back to the same person, Erica Stefanko. That year, Chad Cobb finally agreed to cooperate. From his prison cell, he provided a detailed account of the murder, including the exact moment Erica placed the call that set it all in motion. He described the fake order, the parking lot, and the drive back home with the children still in the car. Detectives compared his statement with phone tower records, Domino's dispatch logs, and previous testimony. Every detail aligned. By late 2019, the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office prepared new charges: aggravated murder, kidnapping, and complicity to commit murder. On November 20, 2019, officers arrested Erica Stefanko at her home. The arrest made headlines across Ohio. After nearly a decade, the case that began with a single pizza order had resurfaced, and this time investigators believed they had the missing piece. The upcoming trial would depend heavily on Chad Cobb's testimony. Prosecutors knew the defense would attack his credibility, a convicted murderer trying to shift blame. But the evidence supporting his account was strong. Phone records placed Erica at the heart of the setup. Witnesses confirmed her access to the phone used in the call. And investigators testified that only someone close to both Ashley and Chad could have orchestrated the delivery the way it happened. For the first time, the full picture began to emerge. A custody conflict that turned deadly. A plan executed in silence. and a truth buried for years until one man's confession finally forced it into the open. 8 years after Ashley Biggs was murdered, the case finally returned to court. The state of Ohio versus Erica Stefanko, a name that had once faded from the headlines, was now back in front of a jury. For the prosecution, this was the chance to close one of the most disturbing chapters in the county's history. For Ashley's family, it was the moment they'd waited nearly a decade for. And for Erica, it was the day her quiet suburban life unraveled completely. The trial began in November 2020, inside the Wayne County Courthouse. COVID restrictions were still in place, so the courtroom was limited in size. Reporters filled the seats, and family members sat silently behind plexiglass barriers. At the defense table sat Erica Stefanko, wearing a simple blouse and a surgical mask. She looked composed, often expressionless, as the charges were read aloud. Aggravated murder. Kidnapping. Complicity to commit murder. When asked for her plea, she said one word: not guilty. The prosecution, led by Assistant Prosecutors Nathan Shaker and Angie Miller, opened by laying out a story of jealousy, resentment, and cold planning. They told the jury that this wasn't a sudden act of rage. It was a setup, one that began days before the murder. According to the state, Erica had been consumed with anger toward Ashley Biggs over ongoing custody issues involving Chad Cobb's daughter. They argued that Erica's resentment built over time until it turned into action. The prosecutors called it a coordinated act carried out by two people, bound by resentment and control. The first witnesses were detectives who handled the original investigation. They testified about the fake pizza order, the prepaid phone, and the timeline of events. Jurors saw the delivery records from Domino's, showing that the call came from a phone connected to Erica. They also heard how that phone was purchased just days before the killing. Then came the evidence from the scene, the location data, the recovered phone logs, and photographs taken the night Ashley's body was found. Every image reinforced the same story. Ashley had walked into an ambush she never saw coming. The defense, led by attorney Kerry O'Brien, pushed back hard. They argued that the prosecution's entire case rested on the word of a convicted killer, Chad Cobb, who had every reason to lie. O'Brien told the jury, "This man is trying to save himself. He's been behind bars for life. He has nothing to lose by dragging her down with him." The defense maintained that Erica had no part in the murder, no knowledge of the plan, and that she was being punished for someone else's crime. They pointed out that no physical evidence tied Erica directly to the scene of the attack. No fingerprints, no DNA, no witness placing her there. To the defense, Chad's testimony was nothing more than the desperate words of a man seeking revenge. But the state's most emotional witness came midway through the trial, Ashley's daughter, now a teenager. Her voice was quiet, but the courtroom was still as she described the last night she saw her mother alive. She remembered being in the car with Erica and the other children. She recalled hearing loud voices outside, then seeing Chad return looking tense. She didn't know what had happened, only that something felt wrong. Her words gave jurors a glimpse of the human cost behind the evidence. A child caught between two families, left without the mother who had always fought to protect her. Then came Chad Cobb's testimony, the most anticipated moment of the trial. Dressed in prison uniform, shackled at the wrists, Chad spoke calmly as he recounted the night of June 20, 2012. He told the court that Erica made the fake pizza call using a disposable phone. He said she guided him to the parking lot, told him where Ashley would be, and stayed on the line until Ashley arrived. According to him, she knew exactly what was about to happen. The courtroom listened as he described the attack, the drive, and the aftermath, how Erica drove home with the children, acting as if nothing had occurred. The defense cross-examined him for hours, pointing out contradictions and motives to lie. But Chad never wavered. He admitted his guilt. He said nothing could undo what he had done, but he wanted the full truth known. Jurors also heard from digital experts who analyzed phone data, proving that the prepaid phone Erica purchased had connected to the same cell tower near her home at the exact time of the call to Domino's. There was also testimony about a previous argument Erica had with Ashley, where she allegedly said she wished she could make her disappear. The prosecution's closing argument tied it all together. The motive, the means, and the years of silence afterward. "This was not an accident," one prosecutor said. "This was revenge, planned, executed, and hidden." And for 8 years she said nothing. After nearly 2 weeks of testimony, the case went to the jury. Deliberations lasted several hours. Then, on November 24, 2020, the verdict was read. Guilty on all counts. In the gallery, Ashley's family quietly held hands. Some cried. Others just closed their eyes. Erica remained still, no reaction, no emotion. The judge thanked the jury, dismissed them, and ordered a date for sentencing. Outside the courthouse, prosecutors spoke briefly to reporters. They called it a long journey to justice for Ashley Biggs, a woman who served her country, loved her child, and was betrayed by the people she trusted most. For investigators who had carried the case for years, it was both relief and closure. But for Ashley's daughter, it was something more personal, an acknowledgement that the truth, however painful, had finally been told. It was the morning of January 11, 2021. The Wayne County courtroom was silent, tense, and filled with emotion. After nearly a decade of waiting, it was time for the final chapter in the case of State of Ohio versus Erica Stefanko. For the family of Ashley Biggs, it was a day they never wanted but one they knew had to come. For the prosecution, it was the moment to close one of the darkest cases in county history. And for Erica Stefanko, once a wife, a mother, and a seemingly ordinary suburban woman, it was Judgment Day. Erica entered the courtroom quietly. She wore a dark blazer and mask, her hands cuffed at her waist. The bailiff led her to the defense table, where she sat beside her attorney, Carrie O'Brien. Across the aisle sat Ashley's loved ones, parents, siblings, and friends, all dressed in black, holding photographs of Ashley in her Domino's uniform and smiling beside her daughter. Judge Corey Spittler presided over the sentencing. The courtroom air was heavy. Even after the jury's guilty verdict weeks earlier, the reality of what was about to happen felt almost unreal. Before the sentence was read, the judge allowed the family to speak. The first to stand was Ashley's mother, her voice trembling as she read from a prepared statement. Ashley was our light. She worked hard. She was a mother, a veteran, and she did everything she could to give her daughter a better life. And Erica, you took that away. You didn't just take Ashley. You took years of birthdays, graduations, and moments that can never be replaced. There were tears in the courtroom. Even the court staff looked down. Ashley's sister followed, describing how the murder shattered their family, how her parents never truly recovered, and how Ashley's daughter would grow up only with memories. I hope someday, Erica, you realize the depth of what you've done, she said. Not just to Ashley but to everyone who loved her. The defense then asked the court for leniency. Attorney Carrie O'Brien argued that Erica had lived a clean life before this case, raising her children, holding a steady job, and staying out of trouble. He reminded the court that she was not at the scene of the murder and that her role, according to testimony, was limited to making a phone call. She's not beyond redemption, O'Brien said. She's not a monster. She's a woman who made terrible choices under the influence of someone manipulative and violent. Erica herself was given the opportunity to speak. She stood slowly, turned toward the judge, and said, "I'm sorry for the pain that Ashley's family has endured. I never wanted anyone to be hurt. I understand the jury's decision, but I maintain that I did not kill Ashley. I pray every day for her daughter and her family." Her voice broke slightly, but she did not cry. When it was time for sentencing, the courtroom grew silent. Judge Spittler adjusted his glasses, looked directly at Erica, and began to speak. This court has listened carefully to every piece of evidence. What stands out most is the level of planning and coordination involved. This was not a crime of passion or impulse. It required calculation, and you played a role that was essential to its success. He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. You may not have wielded the weapon, but without your actions, this crime would not have happened in the way it did. You were part of the plan. You had chances to stop it, and you chose not to. The judge then pronounced the sentence. Life in prison with the possibility of parole after 30 years. The sound of quiet sobbing came from Ashley's family section. One of her relatives whispered, "Thank you," under their breath. Erica didn't react. She nodded slightly, then sat down as deputies approached to escort her out. The courtroom remained silent as she was led away, a once-free woman now facing decades behind bars. Outside, prosecutors Nathan Shaker and Angie Miller spoke to the media. They thanked the jury for their service and acknowledged the persistence of investigators who refused to give up. Justice for Ashley took 8 long years, Shaker said. But today her voice was finally heard. Reporters asked if the family felt closure. Ashley's mother responded softly. There's no closure when you lose a child. But there is peace knowing the truth came out. In the months that followed, Erica filed an appeal, claiming her trial was unfair and that Chad Cobb's testimony should have been excluded. But for now, the verdict and sentence stand. As for Ashley's daughter, she continues to live with family, growing up away from the chaos that defined her early childhood. Friends describe her as strong, resilient, and determined to honor her mother's memory. Ashley Biggs was 25 years old when she was murdered. She was a U.S. Army veteran, a hard-working mother, and a woman who simply wanted a stable life for her child. Her story, of trust, betrayal, and long-delayed justice, serves as a reminder that even when truth is buried, it can still rise to the surface. And for those who waited almost a decade for this moment, justice, however late, finally arrived. The trial was over. The verdict delivered. But for those who lived through the case, the investigators, the families, and even the jurors, the story of State of Ohio versus Erica Stefanko didn't end inside that courtroom. In many ways, it was only the beginning of the long aftermath. In the weeks following her sentencing, Erica was transferred to the Ohio Reformatory for Women in Marysville, where she began serving her life term. Her new reality was far removed from the suburban home she once shared with her children. Everyday life now consisted of structured hours, correctional uniforms, and a narrow window to see her loved ones, if they still chose to visit. Outside the prison walls, Ashley Biggs's family continued to pick up the pieces. Her daughter, now a teenager, stayed with relatives who promised to give her the normal life Ashley had always wanted for her. Those close to the family say she still keeps a picture of her mother in her backpack, a constant reminder of the woman she lost too soon. But Erica's legal team wasn't ready to let the story close. In 2022, they filed an appeal, arguing that the trial court made errors in allowing Chad Cobb's testimony, calling it unreliable and prejudicial. They also claimed that Erica's right to a fair trial was compromised, citing issues with jury selection and procedural rulings. The Ninth District Court of Appeals reviewed the case in early 2023, hearing arguments from both sides. Prosecutors stood firm, insisting that the evidence of Erica's involvement was overwhelming, from the phone records to Chad's detailed confession and corroborating testimony. Months later, the appellate court issued its decision. The conviction stood. For Ashley's family, that ruling marked the end of an exhausting legal chapter. After nearly a decade of uncertainty, followed by years of court hearings and appeals, justice, in its full weight, had finally settled. Still, questions remained. Why had things escalated so far? Why did something as ordinary as a custody dispute end in tragedy? Even detectives who worked the case admitted those were questions without satisfying answers. Meanwhile, the case of Ashley Biggs became a point of discussion in true crime forums and law schools across Ohio, an example of how digital forensics, persistence, and time can bring closure to even the coldest files. Investigators later revealed that if not for renewed efforts in 2019, especially the re-evaluation of phone data, Erica might never have faced charges. That single decision to re-examine old evidence changed everything. In the years since, documentaries, podcasts, and online discussions have continued to revisit the case. Each retelling brings new eyes to Ashley's story, not for entertainment, but as a reminder of how fragile safety and trust can be, even among those once closest to us. Today, Chad Cobb remains in prison, serving his life sentence without parole. Erica Stefanko, now inmate number W110908, continues to maintain that she did not participate in the murder, though she has expressed remorse for the events that unfolded. Ashley's family rarely speaks publicly now. When they do, their message is simple. Ashley's gone, but her light hasn't faded. She'll always be remembered for how she lived, not how she died. Her daughter, now stepping into adulthood, carries her mother's legacy quietly. Those who know her say she's strong, compassionate, and determined to turn pain into purpose. She's spoken at youth gatherings about resilience and forgiveness, about growing up in the shadow of something terrible and choosing not to let it define her life. It's a perspective few could ever imagine, yet it's what gives this story its final measure of hope. The story of Ashley Biggs is not just a crime, it's a reflection of the countless lives altered by one violent act. It shows how time, truth, and persistence can uncover what was once buried. It's about a family that refused to forget, a detective who refused to give up, and a daughter who chose to live beyond tragedy. Ashley Biggs's story reminds us that justice can take time, sometimes years, sometimes decades, but when it arrives, it stands as proof that truth cannot be erased. She was a soldier, a mother, a friend, and her name will never fade from the record. This is not just the story of a crime. It's the story of endurance, accountability, and the pursuit of peace after loss. For more true crime stories like this, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.